Mike Stenhouse, and I'm your host for the show. The format of in the dugout is reminiscent of my days as a former baseball player when we would gather in the dugout before a game and have casual discussions about topics of interest to us, life, whatever. So similarly, I'll be inviting guys and gals to join me in the dugout, some from our team, some from the other team. That's okay, good debate. So today our lineup features Chris Maxwell. Chris is a longtime friend, so let's bring Chris on, who's executive director of the Rhode Island Trucking Association, who has just joined me in the dugout. Chris, welcome to our show.
Glad to be in the dugout, Mr. Stenhouse. How are you this afternoon?
All right. So, our tradition is in the dugout, we wear our baseball cap. So today I've got my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. And as you can see, I'm dressed in my green and gold all along. What do you got for us today, Chris?
Well, I'm going to start with my blue and gold because I have a significant investment in a Mountaineer freshman. So I'm going to go with the West Virginia Mountaineer cap to start. I will be like a NASCAR driver. I'm going to add another cap during the conversation.
Oh, a double capper. It'll be our first double capper ever. That's awesome.
Yeah, I may start a tradition, a new movement.
All right. So your son's in West Virginia, you said?
Yes, sir. Yes, he is.
That's great. All right. Listen, you're head of Rhode Island Trucking Association.
Yep.
And it was a good 4 or 6 weeks ago, really kind of at the beginning of this pandemic crisis. And I heard something about truckers across the nation, and I think it was all truckers, not just Rhode Island, but on your own, without government pointing a gun at your heads with mandates, truckers, you develop your own health, social distancing kind of protocols when it comes to deliveries and pickups for the safety of your drivers and for your clients. Isn't that right?
I think, Mike, like a lot of sectors, we evolved. We evolved on information from various, I recall a great guidance from the National Tank Truck Carriers, which is one of the ATA divisions from. So we kind of did a mosaic, if you will. Obviously, our drivers are out on the front lines, but dealing with a number of different facilities that they do or don't need access to. So it was really a kind of like anybody, a kind of a go along as you see fit. We were deemed essential.
Right.
Not only those hauling essential products like alcohol and respirators and things like that. Those folks were actually given relief under certain federal regulations on the number of hours they can drive. But as a whole, the supply chain was pretty well exempted based on certain parameters.
Even though you were exempted, you didn't need government to tell you how to be safe in your own jobs. You did it on your own, right?
No, we did it on our own, pretty much.
Right, that's the point I'm trying to make, because this governor right now is talking about how she's going to impose rules and regulations on an industry by industry basis, as if the government knows business better than you guys who are in the business. So I just wanted to set truckers as an example of good corporate responsibility.
We set the ground rules for our industry, knowing this governor's dislike for the trucking and lack of understanding and value for the trucking industry. We on day one set the parameters of who we were, what we were doing, what regulations we were operating on. There was no, we set that standard. We did have to fight. I had to fight for some of our constituents, some of our members who they questioned the value of and the need for those to bring in. So it wasn't a blank check. We had to spend a few days on some issues and proving that those entities had a right to remain open. So,
that's great, and I applaud you guys for that. Now, last week you guys kind of followed up on that. So a couple things to talk about. First, let's talk about your release. We'll talk about Rhode Island Manufacturers deal in a second. So I think it was last Tuesday or Wednesday, April 22nd, 23rd. You guys put out a release. Basically saying, listen, we need to open up. We shouldn't have this concept of essential businesses and non-essential businesses. We shouldn't have this concept of certain states, certain industries, complying with health protocols and others not being able to, because you're calling for all businesses to be open and all businesses have the chance to voluntarily self-regulate, right, with healthy protocols, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Tell us a
So
little more about the release, Chris.
more about the release. Well, we were privy to what was known as the manufacturer's pledge from day one, because the manufacturer's pledge actually had a provision that, unlike access from contractors that might be going into factories or manufacturing buildings, or sales staff, there was a clear guidance in that manufacturer's pledge that truck driver access would be refused, and that was a little harsh. But in looking over that, I read it. We thought it was harsh, but we listen to my point earlier. We had to deal with the restrictions we were dealt, or had communicated to our folks at different types of facilities. But so we were aware of this, and what really stoked this was, as time evolved, and we started looking at the fact that businesses were starting to really be in having a major hurt put on them, and the governor in her own press conference saying, "Hey, we really don't have a regulation or a guidance or a plan for reopening." I said, wait a minute. I said, this manufacturer's pledge was crafted and
Yeah,
signed off on by the
yeah.
Department of Health and Commerce, Rhode Island, and the governor.
Let's take a
When
look at
this
that
thing,
pledge. Let's
when,
take a look at
when
that pledge on our
yeah, go
screen.
ahead.
Yeah, let's do that. And so what Chris is referring to is that Rhode Island manufacturers, I imagine, proactively went to the governor and said, "Listen, we're essential. We should be an essential business, and we're
And I
willing
think
to."
they were, Mike, and I
Yeah,
think they were essential
just
in many
just like
cases.
truckers are. Yeah, just like
Not
truckers.
unilaterally, not
Right.
unilaterally. There was some that were not, but they listen. I'm going to give them credit for jumping in and
Yeah.
advocating for themselves, because there are entire communities and sectors, and I'll name them. Where's the Providence Chamber of Commerce on behalf of restaurants? Where's hospitality on behalf of restaurants? I'm going to give manufacturers credit for going to the table, exercising and leveraging their
Yeah.
seat at the table with Commerce Rhode Island to say, hey,
Yes.
we
We.
need to remain open. We're going to sign a pledge. And that enabled them to stay open. So fast forward a month, when you have a governor up there really pushing back on businesses that are very frail, business owners that are equally on scale, have the ability to do a similar pledge or a similar plan. Why are we pushing back on those when we have a plan in place that your office and the
Yeah.
Department of
So
Health signed off on?
and
So
as you
yeah,
mentioned in your release, why shouldn't every business have a chance to take a pledge
right.
like that if it
And,
means reopening, right?
and Mike, the press read that we want businesses to open immediately. I think what we really meant was every business should have equal. These people are all about equal opportunity. We know that. We wanted the ability for every sector and every business to have an equal opportunity to formulate a pledge or whatever they wanted to
Absolutely.
call it to reopen their business.
Absolutely.
Maybe some are a month out, maybe some are 2 months out. Maybe, I don't know, as I joked, I said maybe a restaurant with 100 seats can now do 30 seats, have seatings. You have to be in and out within an hour with a reservation, and we're going to serve the meals on 6-foot wooden pizza
Yeah.
boards.
So
It
so
doesn't,
yeah.
as outlandish as that is, what we were concerned about was,
Sure.
listen, here was an insider. This governor has a long sordid track history of picking winners and losers,
Yep. Exactly.
whether it's with pension reform before she was governor, whether it was with siding with the special interests of construction and against the truckers to choose winners and losers. We saw it last year with IGT versus Twin River. She sided
Yep.
with IGT because her
That's not
good
an
friend, the
equal playing
lobbyist,
field, is it? Not an
and
equal playing
here
field, is it?
and here during a pandemic, she's picking winners and
Yep.
losers.
Yep.
Again, I'm not gonna blame the leadership of manufacturing. More power to them. But if there's an insider advantage, subjective deal granted 30 days ago in the midst
That's not
of
fair, is
this
it?
uncertainty,
Yeah. That's not
that's
fair.
not fair. So
That's
all
not
we were
fair.
calling as an industry that intersects with every business, and again, manufacturers, we are hand in glove with them. Manufacturers, farm stands, farms,
Yep.
auto, you name it.
Well,
we
yeah.
felt
Listen,
we felt
think of an
we
employee
yeah,
who got laid off, right? Tell that person's family that his or her job isn't essential,
right, right.
and that their business
You know,
isn't essential, and
a
that they
person
shouldn't have the chance to figure out how to safely reopen, right?
a person I know very well said, manufacturers did a great job and went above and beyond, moved heaven and earth to keep themselves open. That's wonderful. Again, I give them all the credit in the world. But any business owner that's fighting for their
Yep.
financial life and their work of a lifetime, that has kids in college, I'm fortunate. My wife and I are both been gainfully employed through this thing. Thank God. I can't imagine with kids
Yep.
in college what
Yep.
they was doing. But
Tell them it's not essential.
you're telling one sector you have a blank check, while you're not giving the equal opportunity for others. You're picking
Yep.
winners and losers, and that's why this governor continues to have problems the way she does. That's why what ails
Well,
Rhode Island,
yeah.
the
Well, your
insider deal.
your group's courageous press release, which really was, because we rarely see any business leader, business group take a stand. It is one of the things since we started this center 8 or 9 years ago. We've been talking about where are the warriors in the business community going to stand up for what's good for the businesses in the state. So thank you for doing that. It did not go unnoticed.
Yeah.
As you may know, one of our coalition partners, the Gatsby Business Network, has since, I think just yesterday, launched an online petition drive, pretty much echoing your media release, saying give every business is essential, every job is essential, give every industry and every business a chance to pledge their own support. And I think, and viewers, we just tell viewers, just go to
Do I have more time,
gatsby.biz.
Mike? Do I have
Pardon me,
more time?
gatsby.biz.
Let me just intersect there.
Sure.
We clearly have a plan that apparently was effective or not. I do question whether, if the uptick in the Hispanic population has any correlation to the fact of the pledge being ineffective. That's something they need to look at. But in theory, if this pledge was as effective as it was with manufacturing closed facilities, why are we not leaning on that? Why are we bragging about keeping manufacturing open, yet we're not saying, look,
Yeah,
this is a model plan.
that's right.
Restaurants,
Bingo.
Dale Venturini,
Bingo.
your restaurants are decimated. Lori White, your Providence restaurants are decimated. Where are you? Why are you not at the table like manufacturers saying, okay, we have the restaurant pledge
Sheeple.
that we want to roll
It's
out?
the sheeple syndrome, Chris. Too many
Well,
just don't.
they're being dictated to.
Yep, sheeple.
And you can't have winners and losers and dictation on
All
an
right.
unequal playing field during a pandemic.
All right. So apart from that, we know you're often. Oh, here comes the other hat. What hat we got going
Okay.
now?
All right, we're going to Syracuse Orangemen, my alma mater.
Your alma mater. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Well, should I one you up and go to my? And I'll keep my Packers hat on because the other color wouldn't match my green.
If you do that, I'm going to throw
Oh.
my phone. All right. So don't do it.
All right. This is in the dugout, baby. This is what it's all about. Little razzing,
Right.
little back and forth. This is what it's about. All right. You've been, you're an association head. You're privy to certain knowledge that the rest of us aren't. You're even on some phone calls, I believe, with state leaders. What sense are you getting, apart from whether or not, because we know this governor isn't going to let every business go back under the manufacturer's model.
Yeah.
What is your sense of the heavy-handed restrictions that could be placed on many other businesses once we do partially reopen? Do you have a sense of that?
My sense is that again, there are winners and losers. They're the ones they're the ones on the inside that are gonna be allowed to flourish. And the general sense is that this is still, and it is a crisis, but it should be now moving to a manageable crisis under open Rhode Island. I think it should be
Yeah.
warmer, cooler. To reopen myself, and that was a joke, by the way. You can laugh or not, but my point is, I think that um, I don't want to say they're not sincere about the reopening, but there's a side of me that almost says we're gonna. They want to almost say we told you so in a week or two.
Well, they want to keep way too much control over businesses. You and I talked about this offline the other day. Under strict government mandates, just like Rhode Island, just like truckers did, you innovated on your own and came up with a healthy protocol.
Yeah.
But under strict government mandates, you're ignoring that power of free market innovation of business owners who know their businesses and industries better than anybody.
It's now
come up
in
with
one
the solutions.
Mike, in 1 month, it's ingrained in us. It's in our DNA now.
Yep.
Washing our hands,
Yep.
social distancing, washing everything. That is 75% of that. Then you impose self-regulatory controls. On I think it was on Tucker Carlson last night. Elliot Rabin is a New York City suit tailor who basically said, I'm sorry, I'm opening up. He will not let them dictate to him. The New York PD came in and they said, sir, what are you doing? He says, I will not be dictated to. I have controls in place. My business need me. I need my business. I can't do it anymore. They said, sir, we respect you. And they walked out. And
No kidding. I didn't hear that story. That's terrific.
That's a great little example of how this has to go. We're all hardwired. Nobody wants anybody to be harmed or die.
That's
But we're all hardwired to do the right thing at this point. Without look, I'm not. Look,
I got to look that one up. All right, last question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. If you need to make a point, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm going to say, I'm not going to. As I said, I'm not going to bash the governor from day one. Walk a minute in her shoes. But my point is, she's going to be judged, I think, now forward for the next month, if as much, if not more, on what she does than the first month was. I want to say it was easy because people were dying and there was a lot of uncertainty. I'm not saying there's uncertainty now, but she needs to rely on the science. She needs to rely on facts. She needs to rely on a very smart, astute business community that will be a good partner.
Rely on the free market. The free market.
Yeah.
She needs to rely on, not government mandated controls, in my view. All right, last question.
Yes, sir.
Let's raise it up nationally. What you're hearing from your National Association, American Trucking Association, and your colleagues and peers throughout the country. You know, there's an old saying that goes to the effect, when you see a lot of trucks on the road, you know that industry and commerce is booming, right?
Yep.
So from a trucker's point of view, we know we're in an economic crisis.
Yeah.
How down is trucking right now as an indicator of economic activity?
It's up and down. We saw a boom, then we saw a drought. There are certain sectors that have been out straight. It's now starting to dry up because we hear meat factories and things like that. You know, some of the port activity is stalled. And then we have some businesses in trucking that is completely stalled. Fortunately, the roads are clear, not much traffic. Fuel is down. There are some good things that have come of this in terms of efficiencies, but you know, the industry is going to really long term is going to be a big part of this, getting through this. But it's not going to come without, you know, good whole wide scale pain. Like a lot of things, it'll have a big adjustment.
Well, Chris, thank you for joining us on In the Dugout. I wish I could toss this ball to you, but I hope you noticed I haven't dropped it yet. So I still got some pretty good hands here. Someday we'll be able to do this in person. I'll be able to toss this ball to you. But thanks for the West Virginia and Syracuse hat. Chris Maxwell, Rhode Island Trucking Association. Thanks for joining me in the Dugout.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's play ball.